Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Beat the Clock podcast. My name is Michelle Rubio-Garcia, and I am here to help you grow. Through the many timed interviews I'll be having, all guests will answer 4 time-specific questions. 1, who were you? 2, who are you? 3, who will you be? And 4, how can listeners avoid clocking out? By answering these questions honestly, we hope to show you how each moment connects to the next, so that you can begin your journey to find your passion, purpose, and growth. Whether they are entrepreneurs or thought leaders, all are invited to sit down, chat with me, and show you a realistic depiction of success. By doing so, we hope to change your mind and empower you to beat the clock.
What are you waiting for?
Hello, everybody. This is Michelle, and you are in episode 10 of Beat the Clock. Welcome. If you are a newbie, thank you so much for being willing enough to hear me out. And if you are a returning listener, thank you so much for your trust. Both people are super important to me, and both people are part of the BTC community. So if you're here, you're willing to invest in this vision, and you're willing to invest in this community. So thank you so much. A part of that community is kind of creating this little culture. So last week I introduced some time-specific affirmations. I know there's a lot of affirmations everywhere you look, but these are really designed to give you ownership of your time and to give you confidence in your decision making. So here we go. You can trust yourself today. Even if you haven't before, even if you stopped, you can trust yourself. Number 2, your time is valuable. Even if you've been told otherwise, or even if you haven't realized it yet, your time is valuable because you are valuable. And number 3, you can control how you use your time today, even if you used to give it away at random before. So since I'm speaking to you, I say you, obviously, but if you're saying it back to yourself, it sounds like this. I trust myself. My time is valuable. And I can control how I use my time today. I like to close my eyes when I say some of these. You can too, but please don't be driving or on a treadmill when you do that. And I hope they serve you well. On those days where you feel lazy, unmotivated, or maybe even a little hopeless, I hope these affirmations can function as resources to help you rise above those very human days. Everybody's going to have them, guys. It's inevitable. So it's just about having tools to conquer them. And yeah, speaking of conquering, I am talking to Andy Grant today, who is all about empowerment. We connected through a Facebook group, and I'm really happy that our paths crossed. So let me introduce him to you. Andy is the best-selling author, speaker, transformational energy coach, Akashic Records reader, healer, and founder of Real Men Feel, a movement encouraging men to come out of the emotional closet. Andy has been producing and hosting the Real Men Feel podcast since February of 2016. As a survivor of multiple suicide attempts, Andy knows how low we humans can feel and is committed to helping people realize how magnificent life is meant to be. So far on Beat the Clock, only 2 people have missed the buzzer. So if you don't hear one, he did it. So let's see what happens when Andy tries to beat the clock. Starts now. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Beat the Clock. My name is Michelle Rubio-Garcia, and I'm here with Andy Grant. How are you, Andy?
Very good. Nice to be here.
Yes, he's the healer, founder, visionary. I mean, he has a lot on his plate, and I love that. And we're very fortunate to have you here on Beat the Clock. So I want to say thank you for taking some time today to speak with me.
No, I'm really excited to. I told you when I first heard about this idea, I was like, that sounds really cool. I want to be on this.
Yeah, and I was really attracted to your idea too. So if people don't know, and we're going to get into it, I mean, it's going to be in the intro, but you do a podcast called, or created, I'm sorry, Real Men Feel. And that's something that I think my city particularly needs, but anybody that listens here in the universe could benefit from your message. So it's so cool that you hopped on because it's your birthday, and that's like a first on Beat the Clock. We were talking back and forth on Facebook, and then you were like, I'm celebrating my birthday with you. I was like, oh my God. So I actually have a tiny surprise. So you saw the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, I have like a virtual background. But I also have a couple of people that are going to hop on, just a couple, nothing crazy. And we're going to sing to you super quick. Yeah. So my husband's here. Look at him. He's going to like hop in. I don't know. Can you? He's
Oh,
floating.
yeah, he's
His head's
coming out of
floating.
the ether.
Yeah, he's there. And then I have some people on the line. So can you say hi? Yeah, I have 3 people on the line, and then collectively us 5. We're gonna sing real quick, and then we'll hop into it. Sound cool, Andy?
That's great.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. A little faster, guys. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Andy. Happy birthday to you.
Woo!
Awesome.
Well, thank you all very much. That is a first.
Yeah, of course. It's your day. Okay, thanks, guys. I love you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, cool. So that's that. That was a little surprise. I had more. If we had more time, I swear it would have been like a whole parade. But okay, really quickly, before we hop into the question. So something that I always do with each guest is I tell them what little phrase I came up with for them. So on your promos, obviously, we have your technical or expertise titles, but then I like to kind of strip those a little bit and kind of get to the core of you. So what I keep feeling from you, Andy, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you are a convicted feeler. And I say convicted because everybody feels, right? And like you say, all men feel, but real men show it. And you are even, I would say, more of a man because you have been convicted enough to start this whole movement and actually get everybody and empower everybody to feel. So would you say that that's accurate, to be a convicted feeler?
Yes, I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that because sometimes I feel like guys don't want to hear from women and they need to hear it from men too. And I think that's going to be what changes things. So let's just hop into everything really quickly. The first question that we normally ask on Beat the Clock is, who were you? So before the Andy that, just turned another year older today, who were you? What got you to be this revolutionary thinker and feeler?
I was miserable. I was extremely unhappy. Everything I believe and feel now is something I used to think was nonsense, was a crock. My worldview from a very young age was life sucks, then you die. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why wait? I've had suicidal thoughts. I can remember thinking about my own death as early as 8 years old. My first attempts were at age 12 or 13. And there were more attempts than I cannot honestly remember all the times I attempted.
Yeah. And the reason why I wanted to bring you on is because I feel like what we're doing is not tangible, right? Like a lot of people in my city, like they'll buy in if it's tactile, if you can feel it or see it, sorry. But the services that we're trying to offer with our products are intangible and they're spiritual, I would argue, right? And that's so much more profound, and that's what people need, but they're scared to hop into it. So I feel like when we actually speak these things into existence, it's because we've known the darkest places, right? Like people that promote positivity and promote change and all that, it's not a random thought. It's because we were, like you're saying, fucking miserable or very insecure or very unhappy, and now we make it a mission to kind of let everybody see the light.
Right. Yeah, I have not always been this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I let everyone know that because that means you can become another way as well.
Yeah.
I have not done anything, learned anything, discovered anything myself that is not available to every other human being.
And what would you say was the catalyst that kind of prompted this change?
It's a path I do not recommend. It was, again, only after multiple quote unquote failed suicide attempts that I finally realized, well, I'm not very good at this. There's got to be a better way to navigate my life than trying to end it. And maybe since this isn't working, I'm actually supposed to stay here and I'm supposed to do something. So until then, I really just hadn't, I was not raised with any religion. I thought that made me an atheist just because I didn't know anything. I thought it made me, I didn't believe in anything.
Right.
But I was just, I had no path. I had no goal. Being suicidal from a young age, I had no plans. My dad often told me that high school were the best years of your life. So I thought, all right, well, I'll go to high school and then I'll die. Like, why would I go beyond that? Why live not the best years? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So it was all sort of that, but it was finally realizing I just had this tiny glimmer of hope that maybe I am supposed to be here and maybe there's a better way that I can live.
Yeah. And I mean, what kind of messages were you fed growing up? Because you talk about high school being the best years of your life. I think everybody's told that. And honestly, the only people that sometimes say that are the people that are not exploring afterwards, right? Unfortunately. And that's not a knock on your dad. I mean, a ton of people here say it locally too. But we're we're fed things. Like I was fed something very differently than you were because I'm a Hispanic woman, and I was told I could not have a voice. I was told people are not going to like you, you're not going to find a husband, stuff like that, if I actually stepped into my true identity. So what kind of messages were you told growing up that made you feel so low?
It's really things. It was my circumstances. It's events that happened to me. So my parents were dating. They were in college. My mom got pregnant, so they got married because they had to.
Yeah.
They both. My dad worked a full-time job and was going to school full-time. So when he's telling me that high school is the best year of your life, best years of your life, he's like 22 years old.
Yeah.
So he had high school and then he got married and had kids. So, high school was the best years, But again, as a kid, I don't get that. I couldn't put that into context. But my parents struggled. My dad was an alcoholic. He was in and out of hospitals. He was in and out of mental hospitals. I can remember being really young and in the waiting room while he got electric shock therapy. And I would see my dad upset and I thought he was being punished for feeling. So I thought he was like being tortured because, my dad cried. Now he gets punished because he cried. It was bad. My parents got divorced. I was like 5 years old. I have no memory of them being together. I don't have any memory of us being a family. But at the same time, and perhaps because of that, a neighbor started molesting me. And so all the messages to me were like, this world is not safe.
Right.
I can't trust anybody. I can't rely on anybody. And I didn't tell anybody because I had this fear that if I told my mom what was going on, I would be the next man kicked out of my house. So I was like, I better just shut up. I just be the good boy, be quiet. I was an only child. There was no one to talk to. There's no one to share. So I just shut up. I really withdrew.
Well, I'm super sorry that happened to you, and it's not like a pity thing, but people victims of sexual assault are so scared, and especially men. Like I feel if women are barely being comfortable enough to step forward right now in 2020, I feel like it's going to take men arguably like another 50 years if we don't do something about it. Because like you're saying, men get told these signals that if they say that they need help, they're weak. And with something like that, I mean, who wouldn't need help, And I feel like you did not only experience the normal messages that men get told, you got told, you witnessed them on steroids, right? If you literally saw your dad electrocuted for it, and I mean, that message that guys get, you can't feel, it was like a nightmare that you were living. And I'm so proud of you for getting yourself out of that because, I mean, that's some heavy stuff that you're saying.
Yeah, it was. And, I didn't know that it was, or I felt different. I mean, these were things that nobody talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The first time and the only time I met anybody else talking about feeling suicidal was in a mental hospital, which made it just seem even, it's just crazier that I'm even thinking about this. Right.
Right.
So it was bad. And every time I got help, it was begrudgingly. I never took advantage of it. I didn't think I could be helped. I didn't think it was worthy of help.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I saw a different doctor or a counselor at a different diagnosis, every time I saw somebody, so there wasn't much validity. I didn't put much stock into it. All the different times I was on pharmaceuticals, I just noticed side effects. Like I had really bad shakes. I remember being like a zombie state in high school, and like really walking into my blocker and just like, well, if this was normal, this is like this is how bad everyone else feels. Like, I don't want anything to do with this.
Right. No, yeah. And I feel like everybody carries the weight around and it's very noticeable, but nobody wants to talk about it. Like you can see it that people are scared. You can see it that people gave up or checked out, but nobody wants to verbalize it. And verbalizing it is the biggest key, I think.
Yeah. And it's I often say that, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like, but I find anytime I'm willing to speak up about something, it gives everyone else permission. Like
Right.
I have never been in a group of guys where I said, oh my God, I feel this. That someone goes, oh my God, that's stupid, that's horrible. Like, no, everyone goes, wow, me too. Right? That's what happens.
Yeah.
But again, it takes incredible courage to be one of the first people to say you're feeling anything, no matter what it is. But again, I've always been rewarded by someone else going, wow, I just went through that. I'm afraid of going through that. Like, men will support each other, but we're all afraid to take that first step and like pretend or act like, admit we could use some support.
Right. And would you say that, I guess, every instance that you spoke up was like the cookie crumbs that kind of led you to this new identity? Like seeing that light and seeing it repeatedly in small doses, like, I'm going to keep chasing that.
Yeah, because it's an evolution. It wasn't just like, bang, I'm this guy now. Like a constant evolution. I think it was like 2010. I did my first like public video talking about how I've had survived multiple suicide attempts.
Yeah.
And I've got videos that have, tens of thousands of views over the years. And every now and then there's someone just, fag, loser, you should have just died. And that's the sign of feedback that kept me quiet for years.
Right.
So now I get something like that and I laugh. I'm like, oh my God, I used to worry about this. And now it makes me laugh. This is, it's how interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, I always used to tell, because I coached a dance team. I always used to tell them, because some people on campus would, after a while, start talking trash, right? And I'm like, the people that are talking trash are just in such a dark place that they don't even know what to do. So they just spread that darkness. And it's nothing that's wrong with you inherently. It's like something's going on with them that they're not willing to address. And so yeah. I just feel like when you see those comments, you say you laugh, and I do sometimes too, because like, who actually thinks it's acceptable to type this and go, yeah, But also, I kind of feel sad that they don't even see what they look like. They don't even see how low they are. And I mean, I don't know. It comes from a place of compassion, I guess.
Yeah, like most the videos I make that get the angriest feedback, they're talking about wanting to die, and some of them designed to distract the person, and it's meant to piss them off. And I'm like, oh, good, they're mad at me. Like, at least for this 30 seconds, they're mad at me instead of themselves. And that was the point of some of my content, right? Wow. So that's why I can laugh and I can appreciate it. And some people get it. They're like, oh, I see what you did here. Thanks. I needed this. And other people are like, you're horrible. I hate you. Hope you die a slow death. And it's like,
wow. That's really powerful, though, that you were trying to just deflect their own anger onto you. Like, that's kind of sacrificial too,
Yeah. I mean, it's a video called The Best Way to Die. And it's just 30 seconds. And it says, I've been doing lots of research. I felt like I wanted to die for a long time. And I say, give old age a shot. And people are like, ah, how dare you? Like, you suck. And it's gotten worse during the pandemic. Yeah. I'm getting like up to 7 comments a day. Like, what used to be a week of traffic is happening each day. So people are angry and hurt and in pain. That's why I never attack someone there. But it's at least they're getting it out in this disjointed way. So that's why I celebrate even the angriest comment, because like, all right, let that out of you.
Yeah. And like you're saying, like, even if we're going to empower people to feel, we got to make them feel everything, even the bad, because if you don't feel the bad, it kind of harnesses or manifests itself in different harmful ways.
Yeah. And that's an important thing to bring up. A lot of people that discover personal growth or spiritual growth or anything, it's like, oh, it's all going to be love and light. I'm like, well, everything isn't always just love and light. And if you're going to put yourself out there, if you're willing to be a leader, if you're willing to stand up and share your experience, you've got to be able to take some hits. Yeah. And not take it personally, which took years to get over. This is not an easy thing. Right. But to not take things personally, just to realize, especially online, when people hide behind this false anonymity, that they're showing who they are. It has nothing to do with who you are.
Right. I would even argue that online they show their true selves. So if they're a very angry person, it's going to show up online and you'll never see that in public. They'll be the meekest person. And if they're, a bigot or whatever they are, it's going to show online. That is, quote unquote, the safe space for them. But I mean, once you put it online, I mean, we've seen, it's going to come back at you. Mm-hmm. So second question, let's jump into it. Who are you? So we talked about your very dark place, right? And where you were. So how do you help others find their light, basically? Because I see you as such a light now. I would never think that you carried or had to handle all of those things. So how do you do it? You dedicate your whole life now to it. So how do you do it?
Yeah. It is, but it's by connecting. It's owning and nurturing my light. So even using this language, someone can only see the light in me if they're aware of it in themselves. Right. Someone, if anyone that praises me, they say anything good about me, I'm like, that's great. I appreciate that. And realize you have that too. Right. That's why you're connecting. That's why you want to talk to me. But so books, coaching, healings, everything I now do with people is something that I learned literally to save my life.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that didn't benefit me aren't things I share and talk about. Like I don't have come to my, how to pick the best medicine workshops. I don't do that because that didn't help me much.
Right.
But yeah, everything I do, it's to help other people and to realize that we are this light, to realize, I thought I was just meat suit. I thought it was like bad chemicals and something was wrong in my brain. And that's why I felt bad all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I felt bad because I wasn't in alignment with who I was. I thought life sucked. I thought I sucked. I thought it was hopeless. I thought it was miserable. I thought there was no point. All of that made me feel worse because none of that was true.
Right. So if you were to describe life now, how would you describe it?
Life is freaking awesome.
Right.
It's a blast. Yeah. I used to think happy people, normal people were like flat, upline, like Ned Flanders, just Oakley dokley, everything's all this like false, blah, everything's. And I thought I lived in the basement. But, life is a roller coaster and we're going to have ups and downs. And ideally, when we work on ourselves, when we can see that light, when we nurture ourselves and when we're in service to other people, our highs get higher and higher and our lows are higher and higher. So my worst day this year could be better than, the best day 10 years ago.
I agree. That's really profound. Wow. And I was trying to look through your stuff before the interview really quickly, but I was like calling people like, who can sing happy birthday? And I caught a little blurb on your podcast and I'm probably like butchering it. So please correct me, but you talked to this guy and he said that the reason we have so many problems is because people are dealing with things that they feel need to be addressed, but it's actually something totally different. Oh, I'm butchering it. I know. It's like, am I even giving you a hint or?
Yeah, I've got 196 episodes. That one is not.
It's one of the more recent ones. Let me go to it real quick. I know we're like live, but it's okay. Because I want to get this one right. And I really liked what it said. So let me go here and then let's see. Oh, you talk about white supremacy. Okay. You talk about everything. Oh, where did it go? It was I don't know. I don't want to like have too much dead space, but basically, that people kept on handling the wrong issues in their life, and that's why they had so many problems.
Yeah, I mean, because it's easy. We all. I did it for years. We all look outside and we point at who and what is bothering us. The only thing you can change is you. And for me, what I help people realize, and because it took me decades to realize this, I'm responsible for my life. I used to shun responsibility because I thought responsibility meant blame. I was more comfortable being a victim. I was more comfortable blaming other people. But when I took responsibility for my life, when I took responsibility for how I wanted to feel, everything changed, right? So being responsible means, I own this thing called Andy. I own it. What am I going to do with it, right? Because it's all up to me. It's not that, I own this thing called Andy, and it's my fault that everything has sucked until now. What a loser I am. Like, no, that's not responsibility, right? And you can take responsibility for yourself, and it doesn't mean you accept, there's accepting what it is because you can't fight it, but take responsibility for it, and then you can change it. We can't change anything. We can't grow. We can't do anything if we're not willing to take responsibility.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good association. You're saying that responsibility is normally attached to blame, but actually responsibility should be attached to autonomy, right? Because once you're responsible for yourself, there's actually a lot of power that you inherit. And when you come from this place of blame, you're giving the power away to somebody else, and you're throwing all the self-accountability away. But once you actually harness that accountability and that autonomy, it's like, damn, all of this was really possible the whole time and I was missing it.
Yeah. We are of unlimited power. Like the force, the energy that creates worlds is within all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we are these creative beings, and we want to express, we want to create, we want to be in connection with people. And if we think there's something wrong, if we've been hurt, if we retreat, if we blame, that connection can't happen, right? We're all meant to serve each other and help each other. And it doesn't just mean, I'm going to be a doormat and people walk all over me. No, but it means, how can I help them? And because when I was at my worst, I was always surprised to discover that when I helped someone else, I'd feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Like focusing on someone else took me out of the sewer that was my mind at times, right? So we all serve each other and can support each other, and taking responsibility for how we feel and stopping blaming others for anything that's happened to us or might happen to us or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's liberating.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like people are focusing on the wrong thing right now during this pandemic. And like you're saying, they're poking at everything. They're angry. They're pissed off. They just want to go yell at somebody else or go change a law or whatever. But the pandemic is the perfect time to look in and to deal with those thoughts and to deal with those feelings of inadequacy, anger, rage, whatever you want to call it. And people are missing it. And I feel like that's why this thing was birthed, this concept, because I said it in another episode recently, but I don't think people need this exact formula for success because it's so different for everybody. But if you hear somebody, like you're saying, take that first step, kind of talk about these things that are so taboo, that's going to give permission for everybody to find the answers they need for themselves.
Yeah. To me, the only thing that should be taboo is silence. Right.
Good.
There's nothing about the human condition. There's nothing that happens to any woman, man, or child that should not be discussed openly, safely, shared with others. Right. Because we can all learn from that. If we all actually shared what we were feeling, fewer people would have to go through misery themselves. They could learn from examples. They could learn from each other. Most humans have empathy, and we can feel the pain of someone else without having to go through it entirely on our own. Right. But yeah, I tell people, that the pandemic has been, a bit of a gift to humanity. Most people have found time that they didn't have. Most people weren't as busy as they had been. And it's an opportunity to just inhale and just feel. Do I like me?
And I mean, even me that, excuse me, I felt I was doing good work before the pandemic. And I felt like I was being impactful. I was still too busy to deal with my own insecurities. And I feel like it was hindered. I could have done so much more had I just taken the time to really pause. And I mean, I'm writing a book. I'm doing this. I mean, I'm going to start creating resources. All of that was already here in my brain. And like you're saying, it was stuff to help me cope with my own stuff as well. But I didn't have the time to actually do it. And so I'm not oblivious to all the hurt that's going on in the world, but the pandemic has been great for me. It really has. And people know me as a very fast-paced person. So even when they see me doing all these things, they're like, whoa, Michelle, slow down. You're already getting in that crazy chaos again. But the pace is the same, but the work is just so different for my soul. The work is healing me. And so that's why I'm attacking it with such aggression. I could slow down and I could take my time with it, but I love this path of discovery that I'm on. It led me to you. It led me to people that really they have no business talking to me. And it's just like when you parent yourself and when you listen a little bit more to the good voices, you're going to tap into some really powerful stuff.
Yep. I'm sure you've heard this too, the talk, we're in the flow. You got that flow going.
Yes.
So when you're in this healthy flow and you're creating and you're receiving and everything's just in alignment and there's this sense of more, I got to keep going. It's different than I don't have enough. I got to have more. Like there's an angry, desperate more, and there's a big, wide open, there's more.
Oh, right? You gave me goosebumps with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's different. But again, that's something that took me a while to discern that as well. But yeah, I used to hate that there's more. Like I just did all this work. Aren't I done? I have to keep
Mm-hmm.
like exploring shit. This is horrible. Why isn't this over? Right. And now I'm like, oh, there's more. Oh, awesome. Because,
Yeah.
you know, if any one of us were done, right, you've done all the work you're going to do as a human, that'd be our last day. We'd move
Yeah.
on. That'd be the end.
Mm-hmm.
So since the pandemic isn't the end of the world, since all of humanity has not been brought to its knees, like, oh, there's more to do.
Yeah.
What are you
And
going
I
to do about
mean,
it?
I like that you mentioned that if we were to stop exploring, it's like we died. So really, I mean, what we're kind of alluding to is that if people are not working on themselves, they're kind of like, the Walking Dead, or
Yeah.
they're having two deaths.
Yeah. We humans, society, have been dealing with a pandemic for generations.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're just seeing it. Like, it's manifested. But like, and I find this amazing that here's this pandemic, here's this disease that makes us have to be separate and wear masks. We've all been wearing masks.
Yeah.
We've all been separate from each other. And now it's made physical, right? So now that it's made physical, we're willing, people connect on Zoom and connect. And I'm having more open-hearted communication with people that I don't know all the time. So we can close the energetic, the emotional gap, even while there's a physical gap.
I like that. Yeah. And I mean, I read it somewhere and I've been looking for it and I can't find it because I've been wanting to quote it in the podcast, but it said, everybody wants that emotional intimacy, but nobody's willing to put down the mask. Like you were saying, like we love seeing the content. We love other people stepping out of their zone, but we're not willing to do it for ourselves.
Yeah. And we have to. And that's, especially around suicide, there's a lot of debate. Oh, it's selfish and all this stuff. And I'm like, I always thought it was kind of selfless. Like I had this distorted thing, like I'm helping people by getting miserable me out of the way. I'm helping people, right? But there is a selfishness in service. Like when you're in alignment, when you're an open-hearted person, when you feel that jazz, when you feel that light, when you get that sense of more, the more you do, the better you feel. But also the more service you're being, right? So it's selfish. It's selfish for me to want to feel great, but I know what makes me feel great is helping people.
Agreed.
So it's selfless. It's selfish and it's selfless. And I think being selfish gets too much of a bad spin, right? But no, when your mood, when your energy is your priority, everyone in your circle benefits. But if you're a mom, if you say your children are more important than you, or your husband is more important than you, or then that job is more important than you, everyone suffers.
Yeah, agreed. And I feel like you said way earlier in the interview, people focus on other things to avoid handling themselves. And maybe it's too scary, right? Like maybe people have 3-4 decades of shit to unpack, but the longer you postpone it, I mean, the more shit is going to pile up, Yeah.
Every emotion will be felt.
Yes.
A lot of people think it won't, but no, it'll come out sideways and distorted and in a way that's harsher than it needs to be, but think of any time you've ever yelled at someone. Has it ever been like, that's really why you're yelling? Or has it always been like something, weeks, days, years ago that finally showed up again?
Right. Yeah. And sometimes like I've even had to hold my husband accountable for that because he was pissed off about something that happened maybe 10 minutes ago, like a technical issue. And then I'm like, wait, you're just projecting that whole feeling over there and you're throwing it at me. Like you need to harness that correctly. And he kind of pauses and he's very receptive. I'm blessed in that way. So he's like, yeah, you're right. I'm super sorry. And things fizzle out. But people don't have a person to always be telling them that, like, so that's the problem because people can't deal with it too. Like we want to say people are avoiding it, but sometimes people don't even know how to approach it. So can you kind of say maybe what you've lived that helped you approach it, or maybe strategies? I don't know.
All right. So one of the easiest strategies is something that I refused for years, but it's journaling.
Mm-hmm.
A gratitude journal, or just journal, just like how I felt right now, or going to bed or anything. But I had therapists tell me I should journal for years. And to me, that was always like a little My Princess Pony diary thing. Like, no, I'm not. That's like 11-year-old girls do this diary thing. But I'm like, all right. Then I finally did it. And, within 2 days, I'm like, wow, I like this. And someone pointed out, it was a recent podcast guest on Real Men Feel. the magic power of journaling is the journal doesn't judge you.
Yeah.
You can write anything down, and the page doesn't go, "Oh, what an idiot!" Like, no, it just takes it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been doing a daily journal practice since like 2008, maybe 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got steamer trunks full of them. I never go back and read them. Someday
Oh,
I
I was
will,
about to
but I'm
ask.
like, they're all just filled and stuff. And like, yay! And I might read like the week, but I've never gone back and picked up 2005. What was happening there? I've never done that. But
I used to do that. I used to journal pretty heavily too, honestly, when I was younger. And then I don't know. Not that I thought it was like My Little Pony, but someone along the way convinced me too that either I had no time for it or it wasn't a constructive exercise. But I knew otherwise. I felt it. And then I did look back at some journals from when I was 13 and 12, and I mean, come on, like some of the stuff I was feeling was super dramatic, but at the time it felt so real, So to look at it as an older version of Michelle and then see, wow, like there was so much there and it seemed so far removed for me, that was even an exercise because you see the growth that you've had. And all these years, maybe the podcast and maybe some of the videos I'm creating, maybe this is like a form of archiving because I don't always have the time to physically write it down. But over the years, anytime I've had something very emotionally draining happen to me, I always get this impulse in my head, like, let me fucking write it down. Like, why am I not writing? Like, I need to write. And I ignored it. For like 10 years.
Yeah, and a lot of people will come to me and they want to enhance their intuition. They want to get in touch with their spiritual selves, and it's all like practice. Like, ask more. Although all those times that you said no to yourself, saying it's a good idea to do something, well, start listening, and then that voice gets loud and stronger, and you use to trust it, and you feel better because you did the thing that your gut told you to do. We are magical beings.
Yeah.
Unless we refuse, and even if we refuse to notice that, we still are. So, we're infinitely supported. We're infinitely loved. Life isn't fair. The universe is slanted in our favor, right? Everything wants to work out for us. It really does.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
If we ignore those signs, we make it harder than it needs to be.
We do. And like now that I'm doing all of this stuff, I just feel like it's such a flow that I was ignoring, and I was seeking it in my dance coaching. Like I was trying to find that flow and I kept stumbling because I was trying to make everybody else feel the happiness I wanted to feel for myself. And when they wouldn't, because they're teenage girls and, things come up, I would get angry. Like, well, why aren't they taking it in? Like, I'm giving them the most positive thing I can create. I'm giving them this, whatever. And that was unfair to them. And I should have handled myself better. And I never got violent ever, never got, ugly. But sometimes I could feel myself getting very snappy. And I knew that was already an indication that maybe it was time to leave, because I didn't want to get to a point where it was that ugly. And I didn't want to get to a point where I changed dance for them, because dance for me in high school saved my life. Like I was also in a very dark place. I didn't have support that much at home. My dad thought dancing was a waste of time. My mom was too busy to notice. There was so much going on. And dance saved me. And I didn't want to take that savior, so to speak, away from these girls, because that might be the only thing that's keeping them in school. That might be the only thing keeping them away from drugs, keeping them away from pregnancy. And who am I as a broken person to impose my stuff on them? Like, that's unfair. And that's, if we want to talk about selfish, that's selfish to hold on to this entity, right? A dance program, and just use it to work out my kinks. Like, that's not right. If I'm coaching a dance team, it's because I want to help the girls and because I love dance. And that was part of it. But I think when I started noticing that it was too much about me, that's when I pulled away.
You gonna go back?
If I ever do, it'll be when I'm in a healthier place. Like, this podcast is helping me do that. And the book I'm writing, it's really helped me flesh out some ideas. And I love dance. I'm not going to say, leaving the school meant I abandoned dance. But I just know, like, and I told them, it's time for me to step away. There's a point where sometimes even your good intentions can cause some damage. And so with all good intentions, I'm going to step away for a bit. You are still going to be great. You're still going to be powerful, but I need to do this. Like, to have faith in myself, to have faith in the universe, to have faith in God, I need to step away. The dance team cannot be my God. The dance team cannot always be what saves me. It can't be my whole identity. And I mean, maybe for them, like, hearing that from an adult is like, whoa. But even if me being that transparent can help them be more aware of this inner voice sooner, instead of wasting 10 years finding it, I mean, I'll do that.
Yeah, I think anyone being authentic helps everybody that sees that, right? Even if they don't agree, but like, wow, they were, because that's a brave step to, again, for anyone to say how they feel and to change their course of action based on how they're feeling. Like, that's authenticity in action. Like that's a healthy person. And you mentioned being broken, and I don't, even though I do healings and I hear, I've often said I felt broken. What if we're all just learning to navigate ourselves better? We didn't have a manual. Like, oh, that's how this works. Oh, it wasn't broken. I was just using it right.
Yeah. And I mean, my parents too, they're still together, honestly, but they got married too because my mom got pregnant. They right away had to step into adulthood and do all that crazy stuff. So, yeah, they probably don't have some of the coping mechanisms I have now, or they don't have the awareness I have now because they haven't had time to do that. And I've been talking to them a lot during this pandemic, and I hope that, I mean, with this and with our private conversations, it's helping them. But that's all I want to do. I want to help people. And that was always the thing going into the dance thing, but it got perverted in some way into something that was just to, nurse my insecurities. And that's not what it's about. I don't ever want to be in a place. Someone told me this recently, or I watched it somewhere. When it's a scheme, it's all about you, right? And only you're getting better. And when it's a dream, it's about everybody around you getting better. And so for the beginning of the journey with the dance team, it was my dream. Like, I couldn't believe this happened. I just wanted to inject everything and every fiber of my being into it. But then over time, it became a scheme to put on this charade of being a proficient coach, to put on this charade of excellence. And I got a little lost in it. And I just had to step away before I was too far gone.
Well, I can tell, and I'm so sure of this for you, that whoever and however you choose to lead and coach and guide people, it's tremendous service. It just is. So you're on a fast acceleration. It's not going to end.
Yeah, and you're part of it, Andy. So we have about 5 minutes left, believe it or not. So let's just quickly knock out the last two questions. So number 3, who will you be? Right, looking forward.
I have no idea. Yeah, I'm still from that suicidal background. Yeah, I don't have a 5-year plan. Everything keeps getting better. I don't think that's going to stop. I'm excited about the future, but yeah, I don't have I don't know.
And that's something that I'm finding that a lot of the most successful, quote unquote, people are answering, like, or the most healthy, I guess I should say. They're very open to what's possible. They're not limiting themselves to their own immediate plans. They're just surrendering and just seeing what happens. And I think that when you can get to that point, that means you're in a very healthy place.
Cool. I'll buy that.
Yeah. And then finally, so question number 4, and that one will be the one to close it out. So what can you tell people to avoid clocking out on their dreams, on their personal development, just in life? We talked about it. But how can they avoid being the walking dead?
Remember that you matter, right? Even when it doesn't seem like it, and it feels like there's, again, just remember, wait, I matter, right? No one is here by mistake. Your birth isn't an accident. You're not still drawing breath because God forgot about you, right? You're not this the one broken human. You're the one imperfect being that's wandering around and just making a mess of everything. That's what my mind told me a lot, and I know our minds can do that. But just you're divine, right? And the universe is tilted in your favor. So when you're willing to take responsibility, when you stop being the one that's always in your own freaking way, miracles can happen. So don't give up. Always just when you're clueless, just what's the next best thing I can do? And just trust that answer. It might not even, it makes no sense. Like, go outside. That's all? Okay, great. That's all I'll do. Right? Or eat a bowl of ice cream. Like, whatever. Okay, that's what I'll do. Like, just ask, just what's the next best thing I can do to feel better, right? To go in the direction of my dreams. And that's
Right. So something that I really like that you mentioned was that, you know, even if it's something small, like a bowl of ice cream, people think that listening to this episode, like I've already had people reach out to me, go, you made me realize how much I limited myself and, you know, stuff like that. And that's great. Like that awareness is great. But I think sometimes they get overwhelmed or they can lose that feeling because they think it has to be this drastic step forward. It doesn't always have to be so drastic. And I mean, mine seems drastic compared to what I used to do. But like I said before, it was always there. It just feels drastic because I'm broadcasting it now.
yeah, it's the journey, not the destination.
Mm-hmm.
If you have this big goal and, oh my God, I'm so excited, and that's in like, but I don't know how to get there, well, then you'll never make the move most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just like, what can I do to feel better? Like that's one thing I used to journal all the time. Like, the most important thing today is that I feel good. I still write that every day. It's been 11 years of writing that down. And sometimes there'll be an answer like, well, how can I prove that the most important thing to me is that I feel good? And just trust what comes, right? Ask and receive. Ask and receive, rinse and repeat. And your life can unfold in a magical way.
Right. And I mean, I talked about that a little bit in my book, the importance of asking questions, but some people like don't even know how to ask the right questions. So like, I'll use this super quick thing that I mentioned in my book and we'll wrap it up. But my students used to ask me a lot, ma'am, do you have a stapler? And I would say, yes, I do. Thanks. And then they would look at me like, what are you doing there? And I would be like, that's not the right question you're asking. And then they'd be like, oh, may I borrow your stapler? So even just the specificity of your questioning, right? I really like that you're saying what will make me happy, not what will feel better, but what will make me feel better.
Yeah. We need, get clarity on what it is you want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I knew it after years of miserable, wait, I think I just want to feel happy. Like, and that helped get me clear.
Mm-hmm.
And, I work with clients to identify their values, because it's really hard to like make choices. If you don't know what's important to you, how do you make choices?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But once you get clear on your values, and what matters to you, is just making decisions become something you don't avoid. You can say, oh, good. Let me choose, like choice. We have free will, right? It's this tremendous gift. And too often we shy away from it. Like, someone tell me what to do, because I don't want to be blamed.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. So anything you want to plug, Andy? We got about 20 seconds.
Check out Real Men Feel. RealMenFeel.org is the website. The podcast is on every platform there is. My site is theandygrant.com. And if you go to theandygrant.com/talk, I've been offering this conversation since the pandemic. Just we'll talk. There's no agenda. You have an hour-long conversation with me. It's not a show, but just to get in touch and see how I can help people.
Awesome. So we went a little overtime, but that's okay because I had charger problems. So that's my bad too. So I probably lost like 3 seconds there. So thank you so much, Andy. Happy birthday. I mean, when I air this, it won't be your birthday, but thank you so much for taking the time to talk on your birthday. I just really feel like our souls connected for a very specific reason. And I'm really happy again that you were able to make some time for me.
Cool. Can you stay 1 second?
Yeah, yes. So real quick, we're clocking out here on Beat the Clock, but don't you clock out in your own life. Thanks. And that's it.